How green is your green thumb? Is it more of a pine shade or a pistachio? Well, it doesn't matter what skill set or age you're at when you get to gardening. There's always something new to learn or try differently, and it's never too late to start trying.
On March 21st, the Del Norte and adjacent tribal lands Community Food Council hosted the first class of their Seed to Supper workshop series. Through this in-person class, a handy guidebook, and 2 hands-on classes held at the Crescent City Food Forest, participants learn about each step of the vegetable gardening process in a matter of 6 weeks.
This workshop was taught by both Master Gardener / Food Forest Manager Angela Gray and Del Norte and adjacent tribal lands Community Food Council Program Manager Aya Mahan, who invited gardeners of all shades of thumb into the Family Resource Center to go through Chapter 1 of the guidebook.
But before the class began, we wanted to find out what the participants were expecting to take away from today.
So what's your name and what brought you here to the Seed to Supper?
Julie Bennett, and I need to learn how to plant here in Crescent City. I'm used to planting in Washington. What to plant, when to plant.
Are you excited to start the class?
Absolutely.
Kimberly Smith, and came here to learn and try to figure out what grows best in this soil here.
And what are your expectations for the Seed to Supper?
To learn everything I can, because I pretty much know nothing here.
My name is Karen Jackson. I came here to learn about what grows really well in Crescent City. I've got a backyard garden, and I want to meet and greet other fellow gardeners.
And how did you find out about the Seed to Supper event?
The fairgrounds held a Seed to Supper meet and greet, and I talked to the people at the tables, and they told me about this here.
So what did we learn in Chapter 1 of Seed to Supper, a beginner's guide to low-cost vegetable gardening? First off, Angela and Aya went through what it takes to start planning your garden.
I just want to thank you all for making the choice to start a garden or continue to build your garden and learn some new tips. So we're really excited to offer the Seed to Supper course. It is a hybrid learning class, so there's components that you'll get to do on your own with self-study. We have a series of videos for you to watch, and then in front of you on the table is a Seed to Supper book. You'll get to take that with you, and that'll be your study guide for the next 6 weeks. And it really does take you from the steps of planning your garden to knowing what to plant, how to plant it, what you can do to ensure success and care for your garden, all the way up to harvesting and how you get to eat the food that you've grown. So a little bit of background about the Seed to Supper course. It was designed by the Oregon Food Bank and the Oregon State University Extension to create a beginning gardening curriculum designed for adults gardening on a budget. So it really is a practical, low-cost guide to building, planning, planting, maintaining, and harvesting a vegetable garden. So now I am going to hand it over to Angela to present our topic today, which is planning your garden.
Yeah, so some of you, when I was reading your responses, already have a garden, but every year when we're getting ready to plant, it's always a good time to take some time to plan what you're going to do this year. One of the things that you just need to know about that is what your plants need, and really they just need you to give them the resources that they need. Plants need the same things we do. They need nutrients, they need water, they need air, and they need sunlight. Pretty easy, right? So when we're making our planting plan, there's a few things that we want to consider. We want to decide what we want to grow. And when you're deciding what you want to grow, you want to consider things like how much space you have, what you like to eat, what's realistic for our climate, and maybe what's cost effective. One of the things I really like to grow is a lot of salad greens because they're expensive at the store. You really want to eat a lot of that. And so growing it in your garden can really reduce your grocery bill. And so as you're going through, these are the things I like to eat. If watermelon is on your list, it's probably not one of the things you're going to want to grow because they don't grow well in our area. So you'll refine your list as you go through. There are different types of crops. There's cool season crops and warm season crops, and that's what's going to dictate when you plant and what you plant. So when we're talking about space, we're thinking about a footprint, right? When we buy those little veggies as starts, and the tomato plant is this big, we want to remember when we're planting that and planting our garden that tomato is going to get this big. They take up a lot of space actually. So that little 4-inch plant, you actually need about 36 inches to give it the airflow and light needs that it needs. And some of us don't have a garden plot that we can plant in, so we can grow in containers. And when we're growing in containers, there's a few things that we want to think about. In some ways, it can be a little more expensive. It's similar to growing in the ground, but because we have to purchase the soil instead of just using what we have, it's a cost consideration that you might want to think about. When you're choosing your varieties, you want to look through several different seed catalogs, and I can definitely make some recommendations. I can too of some of the local seed companies, but we listed them here for you as well. Territorial is a local seed company, as well as Siskiyou Seed and Redwood Seed. The seeds that they grow are more climatized to our area, so you'll have more success basically than trying to grow from a seed company that maybe is out of North Carolina or one of those other climates that isn't quite the same as our coastal gardening. And then planting dates, we're getting to your frost question here. So the planting dates, we want to think about the frost. There are some cold hardy plants that we can grow, but our climate kind of dictates that we grow things in the ground a little bit later in the year than some other climates. And there's page 8 will give you the first and last frost dates, but typically we say May 4th, I feel is a little too early. I like to wait till Mother's Day weekend. That's my deal. And then the last frost date, May 4th, the first frost date would be October 10th. But sometimes it can be all the way to November. But there are a lot of plants that we can grow that are really frost tolerant. So because we're in a semi-Mediterranean climate, there's a lot of things that we can grow actually year round. And some of those things are right here on this list. Things like broccoli, kale, cabbage, cauliflower, carrots, onions, parsnips, spinach, chard. All those things do really well, including broccoli. Oh, I love fava beans. I know, I grow those at the food forest. They're all over. You'll see that when you guys come. So another thing to think about when we're planting our garden is this thing called succession planting. And really all that means is planting two or more crops in succession. And that can be as easy as following your radish with some lettuce. Radish grow really quickly and we harvest them within 50 days. That's a really fast turnaround for a vegetable. And then now you've got a bare patch in your garden. What are you going to put there next? So planning for that can really help you get the most out of your garden. And that's when we get into crop rotation. So on this chart, it kind of shows you, the legume family can be followed by the tomato family or the squash family, and gives you an idea of how to transfer those locations. And you even want to do that from season to season. So, this year you grew lettuce all in this bed. Well, next year you might want to grow something else in that bed so that you're not competing for those resources. So when you're thinking about how big your garden should be, you want to ask yourself a few questions, like, why are you growing this garden? Maybe you're just growing this garden because you want to see some beautiful plants and flowers, who's going to do the work in your garden? And how much time do you have? That's another really big thing to consider. Starting small is really the best thing to do. Even if you have a really big area, especially if you're a new gardener, starting small and then building on those successes can help keep your motivation going. And then when you're choosing the site for your garden, you want to do some observing. What are the sunlight conditions like? How many hours of sunlight does your chosen area get? Get to know your soil, what kind. Dig a hole, feel it with your hands. And then Another thing to think about is make it convenient. Don't put, and I'll tell you from experience, I have a garden bed right now that is in the back of my house and I don't see it every day. And it's way farther away from my house and it's kind of neglected because of those reasons, you know. Even though I love to garden and I keep thinking, oh, I need to get out there, I need to get out there. But the garden bed that I have that's literally right in front of my front door gets most of the attention, you know, because I see it every day, I walk by it every day. So think about that as you're planting your garden. Don't put it off in the neglected corner, you know, put it somewhere where you're going to be able to care for it. Something that can be really helpful to you when we're in this dreaming stage is making a map. Make a planting map, you know, draw it out on a piece of paper. Maybe even get some seed catalogs and cut them out. You know, make yourself a little vision board or something like that. But mapping it out is something that will help you when you get to the frenzy of spring and you're like, I need to go, I've got a plant, it's time to go. Having that plan on paper can really serve you. And when you're doing your mapping, that's exactly when you want to think about the size of your plants. So we don't want to have our giant bushy tomatoes and think that we're going to plant a whole row of lettuce right next to that if we don't have enough space in our garden. So think about the spacing, the footprint, and the height. And that's a wrap, folks. So our last question, I guess, would be share, you know, what is one thing that you're taking away from the class and what's one thing that's still confusing to you? And we can kind of go around the room and take some questions.
It was a great experience learning about how a garden should be planned, coming from someone who's picked up a trowel maybe once. But what did the new students think?
My name's Chelsea. I think I got a letter from my son's school, and I thought it would be pretty interesting. I wanted to get my kids more interested in gardening.
So what were you expecting going into it?
I was expecting to learn and get more familiar with kind of what we can do in the area, and I definitely learned a lot more about what we can do in the area. I made some friends, some new acquaintances, and definitely got some more resources. So I'm looking forward to putting all that into practice, I guess.
So you say you enjoyed it?
I definitely did, yeah.
My name's Ben, and I am a hospital chaplain.
Very cool. And how did you hear about this class?
I believe I first heard about it on Facebook and then at the seed exchange that happened last weekend.
Cool. And did you learn anything new today?
A lot. I've never gardened, and so it was all new for me. One new thing was just that a garden needed to be south-facing to be productive, and just a lot of new, amazing information and connection to fellow folks in the area.
Did you learn anything new today?
Yeah, I learned about how to care for my soil in containers, and I learned about succession planting.
And to you, why do you think more people should learn to live sustainably, like grow their own gardens?
I think it's really good for people's health. I think it's really good for their mental security to know that they can feed themselves and know that they're self-sufficient.
Throughout this entire KPN week-long celebration, Angela and Aya have shared their passion for gardening during many events, like the annual Seed and Plant Exchange, their garden party for the first day of spring, and this workshop series. They planted a seed of knowledge and an interest in gardening that they hope will produce a bumper crop of green thumbs in the community.
And what started the Seed to Supper event?
Well, many years ago, actually, we all were we all were lucky enough to receive some training from the facilitators that offered this program, and that's the Oregon State Extension as well as the Oregon Food Bank. They actually developed the curriculum, and so we were able to bring that curriculum here to California. We'd love to see more people growing their own food and sustaining themselves on their backyard garden. Because we are grant funded through the KPN, all of our activities that have to do with gardening and have to do with me, basically, are funded through KPN. So because we have that funding, I'm able to teach these classes.
And is the turnout about what you expected?
Yeah, we were really excited to see all of the community show up. And even the folks that weren't able to come tonight were really communicative. And since we're doing this hybrid model class, it's perfectly fine for folks not to come to the very first class because all of the resources are available online.
And what was the most enjoyable part of coordinating this whole class?
Oh, I think it was seeing the excitement from the community and the warm welcome and people being excited about being able to attend the class.
Yeah, I think my favorite part was seeing everybody after we gave the lecture part of the class, to see everybody break into small groups and see that community form and new relationships being created.
Yeah.
And even the end when we were asking questions and just sharing all of our experiences in the garden together.
Yeah,
that's really exciting.
That was my favorite. I really like that. I like the community that gets created around these things.
Seeing people get along so quickly because they're all different levels of gardeners, but they still came together.
Yeah, that's what's cool about it is every level can relate to each other because we're all here for the same reason. We want to garden, right? So even though people are from different walks of life or maybe different income levels or whatever, having that core seed that we can all gather around is powerful.
To you both, why should people in our area live more sustainably and try to grow their own gardens?
I feel like the reason that they should do that is because they moved here for a reason. They love the region that we have, and it's everyone's responsibility to care for it and protect it. And as far as growing your own food, it's just exciting. It's so empowering. Nothing tastes better than a vegetable that you grew yourself.
Yeah, I think Angela said it really well. It's so empowering to be able to take a tiny little seed and watch it all the way until it's on your dinner plate, and to be a part of that is something that's really special, and we should all have that opportunity in our lives to grow and watch something grow and then put it in our bellies at the end of the day.
And I think that's something that a lot of people are missing, you know, that connection to nature and that connection to the wider world around us. And through that act of that one seed and watching it grow through its whole life cycle, we can feel more connected.
If you have a craving to eat a supper you grew yourself, then get out and grow. But if you only have the hunger and lack the skills, you can contact Aya at the Community Food Council or Angela at the Food Forest. Huge thank you to the Klamath Promised Neighborhood for helping these programs grow. For Redwood Voice, I'm Monique Camarena.
And I'm Ethan Caudill-DeRego.